Brad said I should start by telling you what I've been doing because many people have been asking, but I moved to Silicon Valley 8 years ago. I do all kinds of stuff, as you can see, that has put me kind of in touch with the growing tip of technology in many areas, and it's a lot of fun. But one of the problems that I have faced is keeping up. There's more and more stuff to keep up with. So I wanted to share with you in these final moments of the first day of pre-COFES, when you're already overwhelmed from the DOS Symposium and from the sessions that you've been through up until now. I wanted to take as my model the TED presentation, which runs 18 minutes. So I'm aiming for 18 minutes, and please make allowances if I didn't quite get within 18, but that's what I'm shooting for. And to share with you 7 tips for becoming an effective curator of your infosphere. Curation is about sorting. It's about categorizing and identifying stuff. Let me give you the bottom line. The bottom line is you have to decide what you care about. The secret to staying on top of things is you have to identify the people who know about what you want to know about, because frankly, you don't have the time or the resources to follow everything that you want to follow and know about. But that's where, and I hesitate to use this term because it's odious to many of us, the social aspects of the internet come into play. In preparing for this presentation, I contacted a number of friends who seem to always know a lot of the stuff that I want to know. One of them was Andy Van Dam. Andy is a pioneer of computer graphics. If you ever studied computer graphics programming, you undoubtedly used Foley and Van Dam, the textbook that has been the standard for many years. Andy was there with Ted Nelson when he created one of the first hypertext systems. And Andy is still teaching at Brown today and has done many wonderful things. So I said to him, how do you keep track of stuff? How do you keep up with everything? What blogs do you read? What tools do you use to track everything? And he wrote back and he said, I'm embarrassed to say it. He said, but I don't read any blogs. He said, I read the daily newspaper here, and I don't read it online. I read it on paper. I like having the paper. He said, I keep my notes on the PowerPoints that I use in my classes. I write them out in longhand on the printouts of the PowerPoints. He says, the only websites that I visit are ones whose addresses are given to me by trusted friends and relatives. So I thought about this for a while. I was kind of stunned that this man of great knowledge and great ability to keep up with stuff. And finally, I wrote back to him and I said, Andy, I congratulate you on crowdsourcing your knowledge base. And obviously, it's working for you because you are never at a loss for a knowledgeable response to things that are in the domains that interest you. So I thought, this is pretty good. Decide what people know the stuff that you want to stay up with, know about. Then find them on Twitter or on LinkedIn and follow them, follow the things that they are writing. These are people who are close to the growing tip of these technologies. And then finally, have a simple way to stash this stuff so that you can find it later. A consultant in our industry, Charles Foundler, and I had a long conversation once about how we store stuff and keep track of it. I was very proud of my system. My system, which was, I had an acronym for it, I called it Martha, and anything that came into my office through the mail or in any other way, I had a numbering machine. It would get a number. I would stamp it. At some point during the day, I would go through the stack of stuff that came into the office that day, look at it, say it was a magazine. I'd glance at the table of contents. If I saw articles that might be of interest to me, I would say into a recorder keywords that describe these articles and just the number that got stamped on the magazine. Everything got put on the shelves in numerical order. And so if I was ever looking for anything about tall buildings and I had seen an article about tall buildings someplace, I could say or type into the system. This system, by the way, was implemented in HyperCard, which tells you how old it was. And it would give me the number, and I could go right to the shelf. And after a while, after the shelves started getting full, I started adding a destroy date to every item I put on the shelf. And then I could have someone go through the shelf looking based on a list from HyperCard for the numbers whose expiration date had passed, and they would thin out the system and that would go away. And I was very proud of that system. I thought it was absolutely the most efficient way to keep track of all this stuff. And Charles, God bless him, said, nope, he said, it's not a good system. I said, why not? He said, because the cost of the put is too great with respect to the value of the get. He said, I bet that you do not look for very many things in that system at all. So you have all these wonderfully numbered things on the shelves that you can very easily find, but you don't do it much. And so the hour a day or whatever it is that you spend sticking stuff into the system is basically wasted time. He said, I let this stuff just flow by. If I remember it, I remember it. If not, I ask someone in the office if they remember it. And if they didn't, I figure there's new stuff coming all the time. It took me a number of years to finally get around to thinking, this may be a better way to go. However, even for finding stuff online, you still need a system. And I would really like the Gniza system that I read to you about. Let me see, this should go forward. We got too much stuff, we know that. We need to decide what matters to us. And the sorting part is where you follow people. That's why one of the reasons we come to CoFest. Hey, what's new and alive in your life? Karl Heinz, talk to me. What is new in the world of structural analysis and automation? What kinds of things have you been learning about? And I'll learn from him in 10 or 15 minutes what the bleeding edge of the technology is, what it's about. We have to keep up, because even though engineering is a very conservative practice, and we're glad that it is, because lives depend upon it, we have to keep up with the technology. The natural way, in current terms, to do that is not through categorization, but through curation. And so we need trustworthy sources. We need publications. We need good facility with search capabilities. There are tools like Google Alerts and Google Trends and others that you can find. And friends and family as a way to find out what's important. So it's not so much what you know, but who you know. to know what the current conversations are, who's engaged in them, who is in the know. If I want to know about decision making or buying psychology, I call up Peter and talk to him because I know that he cares a lot about that and he's going to know much more than I do. Then there's filtering and sorting. And one of the dangers in the filtering and sorting process is there is only one time, and that's now, because later means never. Because I don't know about you, but when I used to allow paper magazines to come into my home and office, which I no longer do, I would have the pile of stuff that I'm going to read later. And later never came, because the pile keeps growing. Now, the big pile made me feel like I'm really in touch with what's going on in the industry. I got this big, it's all right there. All I have to do is jump in and read it. But that never happens. And as the internet has improved, I can go to the internet for almost anything. In fact, even for the contents of books that I haven't bought. You do a search, stuff will come up in Google Books and in other places. If you have a book that you've identified, you can do searches on it even without buying the book in order to know whether it's worth buying that book, to find these things out. So, how do you keep track of your email? Well, Gmail is not the best or most convenient email client, but it's free, it is searchable, they haven't lost anything of mine in the years that I've been using it, and when I'm looking for anything, I can find it. That wasn't true when I was using local email clients on my system. How do I keep track of links and bookmarks? Because those are things I want to come back to, although I have to say that the interest curve drops very quickly. In other words, if I haven't gone back to it within, say, a week, I'm probably never going to go back to it. However, if the put is not expensive, like if you get the menu bar applet from Evernote, you can grab any website that you're looking at and it will save the page or the URL or anything else. And if you really care to, you can add a tag to it so that you can easily find it. And that's what I've been doing for a while. There are personal knowledge management systems, and I currently have to say the jury is out as to how much they're worth in terms of looking for stuff, because so much new stuff is coming along. You need something to collect stuff in. Many of us, as I look around the room and see all the tablets and computers, I often see next to them a Moleskine or other notebook, and we've grown up with it. I don't know, is it tradition? Is it culture? Do we feel like it's not real if we didn't write it down? But it's definitely there. A recorder is, I think, it's a much unused tool. However, as one who does a lot of recording and very little listening to the recordings, I have to say, I think I understand why. If the recording would make me a transcription, a searchable transcription, I'd probably use it a lot more. But since it doesn't, that's a problem. Screen and page capture software is useful, search and extract stuff. The big deal is to have policies. If you want to learn integral calculus, you can't do it by hanging out with people who know integral calculus. That just doesn't do it. There are a lot of things you can learn that way, but at some point you're going to have to learn integral calculus if that's what you want to do. Curating skills are that way. There is a thing called library science. There is a way to look at information. And I haven't found a Curating Skills for Dummies book yet. Maybe it's time for me to write one in 30 days or less. But it's something you need to devote some time to. Secondly, just like in your exercise or diet, you need to be consistent about it. If you don't consistently save things in the way you want to retrieve them, you won't find them. Take into account the costs of puts and gets. Don't be like me. Don't come up with a system that is wonderful but really useless and wasteful of your time. And if you get nothing else out of this session, if you still don't have a backup system in place for your computer, by golly, go to Backblaze or one of the 2 or 3 other $5 a month services that give you unlimited storage. I have 3 terabytes being updated all the time for $5 a month from my computers, and you do have to do that. But you have to think about it too. You should periodically review your system and your motivations, change them if they're appropriate. Yeah, tags beat folders, but that's not even worth getting into. Farm your relationships. If you have people who are always telling you neat stuff, think of neat stuff that you can tell them that will be useful to them. So in short, define your goals, choose your sources and follow them. Select tools, I have a word more to say about that. Learn skills, invest some time in learning curating skills. Engage your practices, do them on a daily basis. Review your collection at least weekly, prune it, add to it, and just keep going. I will have a list. It's not up yet. You'll see it within about a day at this URL for actual software products and services that will help you in the curation process. How did I do on the time frame? Did I do it within 18 minutes?